My check, audible, rolling. Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Mamta Sharma, Organizing Secretary for the International Short-Term Training Program, ISTTP 1, with a chosen topic on recent advances in environmental toxicology and wildlife conservation, a 7 days training program scheduled to be held from 22nd to 28th March 2022. Signing in from the campus of Raj Rishi Govt Autonomous College, Alwar, which is popularly known as RRC. On the behalf of our patron and principal, and from the organizing committee, I welcome you all to into the fourth day of ISTTP 1. A smile is a universal welcome. We must welcome the future, remembering that soon it will be a past, and we must respect the past, remembering that it was once all that was humanly available. आप सभी का इंटरनेशनल शॉर्ट टर्म ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है, अभिनंदन है। माँ सरस्वती ज्ञान और चेतना का प्रतिनिधित्व करती है, वे वेदों की जननी है। माँ सरस्वती को समस्त ज्ञान, साहित्य, संगीत और कला की देवी माना जाता है। माँ सरस्वती की आराधना करते हुए हम इस ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत करते हैं। A small and fast recap from the yesterday of ISTTP 1, which was our third day. We started the day with a recap of the day. After that, we had an 11th keynote address, which was given by Dr. K.K. Sharma, who was the former Vice Chancellor of MDS University, Ajmer, Rajasthan, India. After that, we had 12th keynote address by Professor Dr. Hukam Singh Ji, who is the principal RRC Alwar and also the patron of ISTTP 1. After that, we had our 13th keynote address by Dr. Rashmi Tyagi, who is a science communicator from IIT Roorkee. This was then followed by 14th keynote address, which was delivered by Dr. Rajendra Rohit, who is presently head of the Department of Zoology, Government Dugal College, Bikaner, Rajasthan, India. The third day was then concluded by the free forum and the feedback conducted by the organizing secretary. This was a small recap for all of you. Environmental pollution is defined as the contamination of the physical, biological components of the earth or the atmosphere system to such an extent that normal environmental processes are adversely affected. The major kind of pollution usually classified by environment are air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. Modern society is also concerned about the specific types of pollutants such as noise pollution, light pollution, plastic pollution. We also call them new era pollution. Pollution of all kinds can have a negative effect on the environment and wildlife, often impacts human health and well-being as well. Although environmental pollution can be caused by natural events such as forest fires, active volcanoes, use of word pollution generally implies that the contaminants have an anthropogenic source, that is, a source is created by human activities. Pollution has accompanied humankind ever since the group of people first congregated and remained for a long time in any one place. Indeed, ancient human settlements are frequently recognized by their waste, shell mounds, and rubber heaps, for instance. Pollution was not a serious problem as long as there was enough space available for each individual or a group. However, with the establishment of permanent settlements by a great number of people, pollution became a problem and it has remained one ever since. The presence of environmental pollution raises the issue of pollution control. Great efforts are made to limit the release of harmful substances into the environment through air pollution control, wastewater treatment, solid waste management, hazardous waste management, and recycling. Unfortunately, attempts at pollution control are often surpassed by the scale of problem, especially in the less developed countries or the third world countries or the poor countries. Noxious level of air pollution are common in many large cities where particulates and the gases from the transportation, heating, and manufacturing accumulate and linger. The problem of plastic pollution on land and in the oceans has only grown as the use of single-use plastics has burgeoned worldwide. In addition, greenhouse gas emissions such as methane and carbon dioxide continue to drive global warming and pose a great threat to biodiversity and public health. Now, in the series of environmental pollution disasters, I'm here to discuss the fourth one in a series. Today, I would like to talk about a tragedy that happened in Vietnam. I know you all can make out. It's about Agent Orange. Agent Orange, one of the many deadly herbicides or the defoliants which was sprayed over Vietnam. Over a decade, the US sprayed around 17 million gallons of a rainbow hue of defoliants over jungles of South Vietnam. Chief among these being the Agent Orange, which was laced with dioxin, the poison. Dioxin is extremely toxic to humans, and the Vietnamese government estimates that 4.8 million Vietnamese people were exposed to Agent Orange, resulting in 4 lakh deaths and disabilities. At half a million children had born with the debilitating birth defects. How horrifying the figures are. Agent Orange is a herbicide and defoliant chemical, one of the tactical use rainbow herbicides. It is widely known for its use by the US military as a part of its herbicidal warfare program. Operation Ranch Hand during the Vietnam War from 1961 to 1971. It is a mixture of equal parts of two herbicides, 2,4,5-T and 2,4-D. In addition to its damaging environmental effects, traces of dioxin, mainly TCDD, the most toxic of its type, found in the mixture that have caused major health problems for many individuals who were exposed and their offspring. There are various types of cancers associated with Agent Orange, including chronic B-cell leukemia, Hodgkin lymphoma, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, prostate cancer, respiratory cancer, lung cancer, and soft tissue sarcomas. Children in the areas where Agent Orange was used have been affected and have multiple health problems, including cleft palate, mental disabilities, hernias, and extra fingers and toes. See what we are doing to ourselves. About 17.8, 3 million and 100,000 hectares of the total forested area of Vietnam was sprayed during the war, which disrupted the ecological equilibrium. The persistent nature of dioxin, erosion caused by the loss of tree cover, and loss of seedling forest stock meant that deforestation was difficult, or I can say it was impossible in many areas. They have become barren. Many defoliated forest areas were quickly invaded by aggressive pioneer species such as bamboo and cogon grass, making forest regeneration difficult and unlikely. Animal species diversity was very badly impacted. In one of the studies from Harvard biologists found 24 species of birds and 5 species of mammals in the sprayed forest, while in 2 adjacent sections of unsprayed forest there was 145 and 170 species of birds and 30 and 35 species of mammals. What a terrifying figure. Dioxin from the Agent Orange have persisted in the Vietnamese environment since war, settling in the soil and sediments and entering the food chain through animals and fish, which fed the contaminated areas. The movement of dioxin through the food web has resulted in bioconcentration and biomagnification. The areas most heavily contaminated with dioxins are former US airways. So I leave with the question to you all that do we really need this kind of war situation where we are polluting the environment, including humans as well? Do write your views to me on endtoxicol@gmail.com or Dr. Mamta @endtoxicol.com. I would love to start a dialogue with you all. One of the first conditions of happiness is that a link between man and nature shall not be broken. So wisely said by Leo Tolstoy. So now it's time for our 15th keynote address, which is to be delivered by Dr. Meera Srivastava. Dr. Srivastava has superannuated as a principal government college in Cursor, Bikaner, Rajasthan, India. She had served in the Department of Zoology, Government Rural College, Bikaner, for over 30 years and has put over 38 years of postgraduate teaching and research in the field of zoology, especially entomology. Ma'am, I congratulate you for your these achievements. They are amazing. Trust me. Besides sheep and camel, she has been a convener of Board of Studies in Zoology and member of Academic Council MGS University Bikaner, and presently is a member of Academic Council IASE University Sardar Shahar, member of Academic Council and Research Board Natia University Sri Ganganagar, in the panel of examiners at a number of universities and vice chancellors nominee in the selection committee of different colleges. 24 scholars have been awarded MPhil and 18 PhD degree under her supervision, and 3 are presently working. She has contributed to over 190 research publications published in journals of national and international repute. She has represented more than 100 conferences and she has visited United Kingdom, France, Scotland, Italy, Thailand, Dubai, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Mauritius, Nepal, Las Vegas, Bali, Indonesia, Paris, and Rome to deliver invited talks, chair and co-chair technical sessions, acted as a jury as well. She has also been online keynote speaker at international conferences organized at China and Bangladesh. She has shouldered the responsibility of being joint organizing secretary, International Conference on Advances in Ecological Research, co-chairperson of international conferences on emerging frontiers and challenges in radiation biology, co-convener 4th International Science Congress. She is a fellow, life member of different academic bodies. She is a member of editorial board of 22 different national and international journals. Besides this, she has been a recipient of 22 distinct awards and honors. Wow! Heartiest congratulations, ma'am. और आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. It's such a pleasure to see you after so many years. Yeah, same beautiful and adorable right now as well. So I would request Dr. Srivastava to start with the 15 keynote address. Ma'am, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, Mamta Sharma, and I always call you by your first name because
that would be better, ma'am. Just
as
call
a
me
younger
Mamta.
sister. So
Yes, you are.
Mamta, it's so
Yes,
nice
I am.
to see you maybe online. I was just wanting to see you offline as well.
Ma'am, you will be coming to us as you promised from 11 to 11, 12, and 13th August. Please
Sure.
be our guest, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. And first and foremost, I wish to thank the organizers of this international short-term training program on recent advances in environmental toxicology and wildlife conservation. I've been introduced by Dr. Sharma in a very detailed form, but I don't need that much of introduction, I suppose. I'm just a simple student of zoology and still a student, and I think till my death I'll be the student of zoology, and my specialization is entomology. So as I've been asked to start my deliberation, I'll just try to share my slides first so that I'm sure that it's
Sure.
visible there. Is that okay, Dr. Mamta? Am I audible?
I can see you. I can hear you.
Hello?
Ma'am, you are audible, but we can't see your slides yet. Yes,
No,
ma'am, you're audible.
And can't see my slides?
No, ma'am, not yet. Ma'am, what you have to do is click on the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen near that red button. 3 dots, and then click on that arrow at the bottom. Click on that arrow.
Why am I not? Is it okay?
Ma'am,
Yeah,
please
I'm just a second. I'll just try. I think I'm. Is it? Am I at the screen share now? No?
No, ma'am, not yet. Ma'am, what you have to do is you have to click on that arrow
Yeah.
and then select entire screen and then click on the button share.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm again stop sharing.
Ma'am, if it's not happening, then you can send us your PPT and then we will show it from here. Ma'am, it started presenting and then it ended.
Did it start?
Yeah, it did start. It did start and then it ended all of a sudden.
Oh. Has it come now?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Has it come now?
No, ma'am.
Why is it not coming?
Ma'am, let's just do it step by step. Click on that arrow and then
One sec.
click on your entire screen. Ma'am, it's come now. It's come now. It's there. Ma'am, it's there.
There?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, it's there.
Is it on the full screen now?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
it okay, ma'am?
Hear you as well.
Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am, it's okay, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
So, good morning, everyone. Respected dignitaries, dear friends, and participants. Right to begin with, I would start with saying that just yesterday there was a talk by Professor M.M. Saxena who spoke on little lesser known aquatic invertebrates. So I would also talk on something of that sort, but not related to aquatic fauna. It would be related to terrestrial, of course, as well as aquatic, but these are little creatures, those which are included in the wildlife, and these are actually the insects. But most of us always, as he said also, that we consider only the larger animals in this category of wildlife. So when I talk about wildlife, it refers to undomesticated animal species, but has come to include all organisms that grow or live wild in an area without being introduced by humans. So this therefore includes not only the large animals in the forest minded, but also insects. That is what I've highlighted, and I would be talking about birds, small mammals, fish, other aquatic organisms, and other biota within the soil. Now, because my topic is on pesticide and insects, so because the theme of this is toxicology and wildlife, so I thought of taking both the things simultaneously, that is the pesticide as a toxic substance and the wildlife, which includes the insects. According to FAO, the pesticide is defined as any substance or mixture of substances intended for preventing or destroying and controlling any pest Now, these could be vectors of human, animal disease, unwanted species of plants or animals. So this is a detailed definition which has been given by FAO, and it stands true. When we talk about the pesticides, according to their use, they can be classified into insecticides, which are used for the control of insects, acaricides, which are used for the control of mites and ticks, herbicides for the control of weeds, avicides for the control of birds, fungicides for the control of fungus, nematicides, molluscides, rodenticides, so on and so forth. Now you see, this is the global level of agrochemicals which are being consumed and used. And if you see into the Asia Pacific, 25% is used, whereas in North America it is 27%, and in Western Europe it's 24%. By the remaining of the world is 10%, and Latin America is 14%. And if we talk about the different herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, and other chemicals which I've just narrated to you, the pesticide use pattern, if we say, the insecticides are 65%. So the chemicals which we use to kill the insects, we are employing at a rate of 65% around the globe. See the situation. India is at the 4th position in the global supplies of agrochemicals after USA, Japan, and China. The Indian pesticide industry is the biggest in Asia and 12th in the world. So this is the amount of pesticide which we are producing, and definitely we are using as well and employing. Now, so this is the volume of pesticide produced across India, and this is the latest information from 2015 to 2021. This is, you see how much metric tons we have produced, although in 2021 this was a little less, but maybe due to some reason, but otherwise it's about 200,000 metric tons annually. And this is the latest consumption pattern in India. That I was talking about, 65% is around the globe. But if you talk about the consumption in India, it is 60% insecticides which are being used. This exactly says a similar figure, but it's in numerical form, and the consumption of chemical pesticides in India, it ranges between 50 to 60,000 tons annually. So when we talk about pesticides, according to WHO, they have been classified into 4 categories depending on their acute oral or dermal, that is LD50 values, lethal dose toxicity, extremely hazardous, highly hazardous, moderately hazardous, and slightly hazardous. Now you see the term hazardous is whether it is extremely or slightly, but this term is associated with all the 4 categories. Unfortunately, some of the highly hazardous insecticides are continually and indiscriminately being used even after they have been banned. The use of chemicals in crop protection, we can say, is a profit-induced poisoning of the environment. So this is a matter of great concern. Every year, this is again a very good information, since 2004, the Consumer Health Watchdog, this is an environmental working group. It is an American activist group that specializes in research and advocacy in the areas of agriculture subsidies, toxic chemicals, so on. And it releases a shopper's guide to pesticides in produce. Now, the latest information of 2021 shows the 12 most pesticide contaminated fruits and vegetables. These are, see, the strawberries, now at the number 1 position, the spinach, the kale and the collard, the nectarines, the apples, the grapes, the cherries, the peaches, the pears, the bell and hot peppers, the celery, the tomatoes. So these are the 12 most toxic. They have shown the presence of at least 1 pesticide, but there could be a few more, maybe 2 to 3 pesticides even. So by their very nature, most insecticides definitely create some risk. As we have already said, they are extremely hazardous or less hazardous. And they create some risk or harm not only to the humans, wildlife, animal stock, and of course the total environment as such. Insecticide residues in food, water, soil, and fodder, we can find them everywhere, definitely causing environmental pollution. And what we're talking about, poisoning of wildlife and of course the livestock, causing ecological imbalance, health hazards to human, which result from direct or indirect exposure, and they cause a large number of problems associated with this, disease associated with this, which can be chronic, which could be acute, anything of that sort, and they are related to each part of the human body. Development of resistance among insect pests to insecticides and pest resurgence due to destruction of natural enemies is another harm which we are constantly coming into because of the use of insecticides. Talking about, in short, the impact on water, if we say the pesticide residue in water can cause serious pollution of groundwater as well as surface water and may result in what? The death of the water organisms, change in the properties of water, and this would definitely affect the life of the individuals or the organisms which are aquatic. Negative effect on the process of oxygen formation by phytoplankton, on the vital activities of the inhabitants of the water ecosystems. Impacts that are transmitted along the food chains and accumulating food products. Direct toxic action, that is acute or chronic, and indirect, that is diminishing the content of oxygen dissolved in water, a change in the chemical composition as we've talked about, extermination of water insects, and so on. I'm just talking of water insects because later on I would be speaking only on insects. Disturbing the aquatic ecology and adverse effects on wetlands, aquatic flora, so on and so forth. And of course, impact on soil as well. Pesticides may get into the soil in the form of their residues contained in leaves and roots. Depending on the conditions, poisonous chemicals may remain in the soil unchanged and retain their toxicity for a more or less prolonged time. So actually we think that we have used a chemical, we have employed it, we have sprayed it, and then it's okay. Whatever we were targeting, that has ended, but no, the residues remain. The residue remain in the soil, it remains in the water, it remains in the atmosphere, and then a prolonged effect can be seen later on. Persistent use of pesticides can thoroughly undermine the productivity of the soil over time by destroying the microorganisms and nutrients that nourish crops. One thing I would like to emphasize here is that every member of an ecosystem is important. May it be a microorganism, may it be an insect, may it be larger animals, but every individual has a role to play when it is a part of an ecosystem. This decreases agricultural productivity. I'm talking about the pesticide and impact on soil, and it decreases the agricultural productivity of land and makes it vulnerable to desertification. So wildlife can be impacted by pesticides through their direct or indirect applications, such as pesticide drift, secondary poisoning, runoff into local water bodies, or groundwater contamination. Now, direct contact with chemicals, it would, of course, it's easy for wildlife to come into contact with chemicals. They may be unintended victims, but are affected because we are actually targeting the insects while using the insecticides. But what happens is the other individuals, the non-target individuals, the non-target organisms are also affected because the crop sprays drift outside the intended spraying area. Residues in soils affect the quality and structure of soils and can be toxic to soil living organisms. Residues blown across fields and landscapes, such as when fields are plowed, so they would move on to the other areas as well. Chemicals leach into soils and onward into rivers and water courses and affect aquatic life besides the soil. When birds eat worms and insects, pesticide residues move through the food chain. So food chain and food web, these are two important things of an ecosystem. So through this chain also, the pesticides, they enter the bodies of different organisms. When herbicides kill plants, regarded as weeds, they remove vital sources of food and shelter for wild species, adding to pressure on them and alter their diet, and sometimes they die. Now, acute poisoning is when this is short-term exposure to some pesticides, and this would, of course, kill or sicken the wildlife, because I'm talking in terms of wildlife only. Examples of acute wildlife poisoning would include fish kills that are caused by pesticide residues carried to ponds, streams, or rivers by surface runoff or spray drift, and bird die-offs, which we so often read in the newspapers, caused by foraging on pesticide-treated vegetation or insects, or by consumption of pesticide-treated granules, baits, or seeds. These types of poisoning generally can be substantiated by analyzing tissues of affected animals for the suspected pesticide, or by investigating impacts on biochemical processes, that is cholinesterase levels in the blood and brain tissue. And I very well remember here that Dr. Mamta Sharma herself has conducted a research on females, pregnant females, and she has also seen the pesticide. She has quoted that pesticides are found in the milk of the pregnant females. So a very serious problem. In general, acute poisoning to wildlife takes place over a relatively short time, impacts a very localized geographical area, and is linked to a single pesticide. Chronic poisoning, when we talk about, is the exposure of wildlife over an extended period of time. That was a short term, and this is an extended period of time, to pesticide levels not immediately lethal, may result in chronic poisoning. The most well-known example of a chronic effect in wildlife is that of organochlorine insecticide, if you all remember, DDT, via the metabolite DDE on reproduction in certain birds of prey. These were in the reports, and every individual must have gone through this, must have read it in the news. The reduction of these compounds in the 1970s and early 1980s has resulted in decreased organochlorine residues in most areas, and reproduction in birds such as the bald eagle has greatly improved. Organochlorine pesticides used in some foreign countries may pose risk to migratory birds which overwinter there, which we recently came to know that domicile cranes did not move, but of course this was not the reason of pesticides. But yes, migratory birds can be affected by the pesticides as well. Now, these were the primary poisoning, and this is the secondary poisoning. If we talk about the secondary poisoning, they may impact wildlife through when an animal consumes prey species that contain pesticides, so indirectly in the food chain. Examples of secondary poisoning are birds of prey becoming sick after feeding on accumulation and movement of persistent chemicals in wildlife food chains. Indirect effect, a pesticide may affect wildlife in ways other than direct or secondary poisoning. They may impact wildlife indirectly when a part of its habitat or food supply is modified. For instance, herbicides may reduce food, cover, and nesting sites needed by insect, bird, and mammal populations. Insecticide may diminish insect populations fed on by bird or fish species. Insect pollinators may be reduced, thereby affecting plant pollination. So these are the indirect effect, not direct, but through other, like because the herbs, using the herbicides are taken over by the plants, and then because of this, they don't give the food is not being able to be provided to the. They are not able to provide nesting sites because they're all covered with the chemicals. So the birds, they don't feel like nesting on those, so their habitats are lost in a way. So these are the indirect effects of chemicals or the pesticides. Now, exposure to pesticides can also alter an organism's behavior, impacting its ability to survive. In birds, for example, exposure to certain pesticides can impede singing ability, making it difficult to attract mates and reproduce. So there would be no next progeny. And if this stops, then we might lose these birds. Pesticides can also affect birds' ability to care for offspring, causing their young to die. This also is a very significant matter. For bees, pesticides result in sublethal effects, impacting mobility, feeding behaviors, and navigation. Many deformations have been found after exposure to hormone-mimicking pesticides classified as endocrine disruptors. So, the impact of these chemicals include hermaphroditic deformities in frogs, pseudo-hermaphrodite polar bears, and penis-like stumps, panthers with atrophied testicles, and intersex fishes. So these reports are already available because of the impact of pesticides. Reproductive abnormalities have been observed in mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, and mollusks at exposure levels considered safe by the US Environmental Protection Agency. So even if these pesticides level are considered to be safe, you see, I mean, put it in inverted commas, they have been considered as safe, but still reproductive abnormalities have been reported, and this is by the US Environmental Protection Agency. So even if we consider them safe, they are not safe minded. This is a news or a report by in scientific research CNRS, that is National Center for Scientific Research in France, and it is not very late, it is of 2018. Catastrophe as France's bird population collapses due to pesticides. Benoit Fontaine, a conservation biologist at France's National Museum of Natural History, he says, our countryside is in the process of becoming a veritable desert, he said in a communique released by the National Center for Scientific Research. The common white-throat, the ortolan bunting, the Eurasian skylark, and other once ubiquitous species have all fallen off by at least a third. A migratory songbird, the meadow pipit, has declined by nearly 70%. Flying insects have declined by 80%, and bird population has dropped by more than 400 million in 30 years. You imagine 400 million in 30 years. And insects by 80%. So if, because you see most of the birds and many other, of course, the amphibians, the reptiles, they feed on insects. So you see the indirect effect. If the insect population is declining, what is going to be the result? The primary culprit, according to Benoit Fontaine, is researchers, they speculate, is the intensive use of pesticides on vast tracts of monoculture crops, especially wheat and corn. The museum described the pace and extent of the wipeout as a level approaching an ecological catastrophe. So if we go on using indiscriminately this chemical, these chemicals, these pesticides, these insecticides, this is going to be the ultimate. So two major reasons, if we talk about, for many threatened and endangered species of animals and of course insects internationally, would include shrinking habitats. Definitely we are reducing the habitats, but the second most important reason is increased use of pesticides and other such chemicals. As per reports available, we have already lost many insect animal species and many are at the verge of extinction. Definitely pesticides significantly reducing biodiversity, not only in the terrestrial habitat, but also in the aquatic environments. Although it is a little earlier report in 2013, but it is by the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which says that the pesticide, many of which are currently used in Europe and Australia, are responsible for reducing the regional diversity of invertebrates in streams and rivers by up to 42%. So very sad state. So of the various classes of pesticides currently in general use, insecticides pose a greater hazard to wildlife than do the fungicides and herbicides, since the physiological processes of insects have more in common with those of wildlife than do those of plants and fungi. So the insecticides, if now I would talk upon, would target insects, they would target the non-target insects. So they would impact on the target insects, the non-target insects, the other wildlife, the livestock, the human beings, and flora. I would be emphasizing upon the less highlighted group, less concerned group, but needs more concern because it is in the initial step of the food chain. The target insects and the non-target insects, which are impacted by the insecticides. So the bulk of all animal life, whether measured by biomass, numerical abundance, or number of species, it comprises of insects and more invertebrates, and most importantly, the insects. These innumerable little creatures are far more important for the functioning of ecosystems than the large animals that tend to attract most of our attention. This has been happening. I've been listening to the lectures earlier. Insects are food for numerous larger animals, including birds, bats, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, and they perform vital roles such as pollination of crops and wildflowers, pest control, and nutrient recycling. Much attention is focused on declines of large charismatic animals, but recent evidence suggests that abundance of insect may have fallen by 50% or more since 1970. This is troubling because insects are vitally important. You see this? I'm just trying to show you with the help of this figure. If you see this whole round figure, the left half comprises of the insects and the right half of rest of the other organisms. So 50% of all eukaryote species are insects. So numerically, quantitatively, bulk wise, whatever you may say, the insects form the majority of the eukaryote species. So talking about the target insects, we actually use, what are we using the insecticides for? We are using the insecticides to kill the pest of the crops in fields. Pest of stored products, these are actually the harmful insects. Generally, we don't use chemicals, but yes, we may target them. Insects damaging the wooden material and furnishings, that is the termite category, and those serving as vectors or carriers of diseases. These are basically our target insects. Most importantly, these are the pests of crops in the fields. These are the target. We are using pesticides to kill these insects. But what is happening is, now these are the target insects. I just wanted to show. Now this is Cysticerca gregaria, a very important and a major pest. It migrates all the way from through Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. And recently, last year, we had a numerous population of desert locusts, Cysticerca gregaria, invading Rajasthan. So this is a very, very major pest. Just to show you a pest, it feeds on whatever vegetation is on its way, and it barrens the land completely, desertifies the land completely. There is no green vegetation left in the area. It is in a solitary and a gregarious phase, and its gregarious phase is it moves in thousands and thousands in number. This is one very important pest of Rajasthan. This is Amsecta murrae, the red hairy caterpillar. In the local language, we call it katra here. This is a very damaging pest to crops. These are the stored grain pests. Just to give you a little information. These are the termites which damage the wood and of course the wooden furnishings in our houses as well. And these are the vectors. You can see the first is a mosquito, and this is an Aedes species, which everyone knows it now very well. And this is a fly, tabanus. But what happens is we are targeting the insects, the target insects, which I've just shown you. But unfortunately, we forget that these pesticides or these insecticides are also targeting the non-target insects, which actually we should not kill, but they are targeting those insects which are helpful in pollination, insects which are helping in decomposition of organic material, insects which are helping in soil enrichment and aeration, which are being consumed as food, which are used for which can be used for controlling other insect pests as acting as biological control agents in the form of predators and parasites, which are actually used in research as experimental material, which are very useful as bioindicators, which can be used, of course, as in warfare as biological weapons, which are productive insects like honeybees, the silkworm and lac insect. And very importantly, now we are also targeting insects. We are very useful in the latest technology of biomimicry. What are all these? So these are the pollinators, the honeybees and the butterflies. We are targeting these insects which are so beneficial. Now this is a decomposer. This is a carrion beetle. This is a dung beetle. We can see the side those who are living in the desert, not around the world, I must say, but those who will belong, because I'm from Rajasthan, I'm from Bikaner, and the people in Rajasthan must be seeing this cow dung beetle very often in the desert. They carry the cow dung, and these are very helpful in aeration of the soil as well. Now this is used as food, insects, the mealworms, a delicacy in various countries of China and Germany as well. Now this is an example, classical example of Vidalia beetle, a cottony cushion scale, which controls these scale insects. So this is a red cotton beetle, the Vidalia beetle, and this eats up the scale insect, the white mass you can see. So it is actually a predator and is a biological control agent. This is a very common Drosophila. So this is an insect and it's such an important research material. So we're targeting these insects as well. These are the dragonflies. They are although aerial, but, or we may say them as terrestrial, but their nymphs, which are termed as naiads, these are found in water, aquatic body. And because they are found in water, they are very good indicators of the water quality, because they would be laying eggs. These dragonflies would be laying eggs in water which is pure, which is good. And if it is not good water, good in the sense for them, but they act as a bioindicator, it is oxygenated, it doesn't have any dirt in it, then so they act as very good bioindicators. Now, this was a Colorado beetle affecting the potatoes, and this was used as an entomological weapon in the World War II. These are the productive insects. This is honeybee. You can see the honeybee, the beehive, and we are so fond of honey nowadays, health conscious people, and we want honey. But what are we doing? We are using pesticides, killing the honeybees, reducing their number, and maybe these are come under the category of endangered species, maybe. Now, this is silkworm. We get a lot of silk produced by these rearing and culturing these insects. This is lac insect, a very common industry of lac in Rajasthan. And then I was talking about this advanced technology, which is biomimicry and which is nature-inspired innovation. So insects are useful as a nature-inspired innovation in the technology, which is biomimicry. How? I would just give you 3 or 4 examples. I don't know if you all are acquainted with this term biomimicry, but it is really very interesting. See, insect eyes have inspired the structure of new solar panel cell. So scientists at the USA's Stanford University have looked at the eyes of insects to create the newest form of solar cells. They have discovered that packing tiny solar cells together could pave the way for a new generation of advanced photovoltaics. Similarly, wind turbines have been inspired by insect wings are 35% more efficient. Now, this is the dragonfly. Wind turbines produce 4% of the planet's energy, but they only work well when the wind is blowing just right. Now, by drawing inspiration from the flexible wings of insects, scientists have found that way to make wind turbine blades 35% more efficient at producing energy. If commercialized, the advance could make this green technology a more viable alternative to fossil fuels in the coming years. So you see the importance of these non-target insects. These are so very important. Robot can leap from water surfaces. Now, scientists have developed a tiny robot based on the water strider insect that can jump on water. The robotic version uses the same forces to jump as the water strider, pushing off without breaking the surface. Now, this is another example of mimicry. And this is a very significant thing which the termites have given us. We generally think of termites as a destroying building, not helping design them. But the Eastgate building, an office complex in Harare, Zimbabwe, they have made this as an internal climate control system originally inspired by the structure of termite mounds. Further research is revealing more about the relationship between mound structure and internal temperature and could influence additional building designs as our understanding grows. So learning for termites how to create sustainable buildings. So these are certain examples of biomimicry wherein we are using their technology. I must say the insects are very technological and we are using that technique for our betterment. So now again coming back to our basic theme, globally hundreds of insects face the threat of eventual extinction according to the International Union of Conservation of Nature. The International Conservation Organization lists 89 insects as critically endangered, 166 as endangered and 478 as vulnerable. Maybe this number has gone up still more by now. According to the IUCN, 60 species of insects are known to have already gone extinct, a very sad state of affair. The US Fish and Wildlife Services tells us that 60 insect species are listed as protected under the US Endangered Species Act, that is ESA, and the list of endangered and threatened American insects includes 17 beetles, 19 butterflies, 2 damselflies, 1 dragonfly, 1 grasshopper species, 2 moths, and numerous list of flies of different types. So this is an information from the US. I just want to show you a glimpse of few extinct insect species. This is caliper butterfly, it has gone extinct. This is eggless butterfly, this has gone extinct. This is Ignis ADP, this butterfly has got extinct. This is a carpenter bee, Bombus, it has got extinct. Bombus humilis, another species. Ephemera, garden tiger moth, see the beautiful coloration, but it has gone extinct. Violet click beetle, Ohlon tiger beetle, bay checkered butterfly, checker spot, see the beautiful checks. Again, I want to show you a glimpse of little few endangered species. I'm talking only about a few endangered insect species minded. Common bluetail, the Queen Alexandra birdwing, this is an endangered one, is the largest butterfly in the world with a wingspan reaching nearly 10 inches, that is 25 centimeter. In the large female, this butterfly is larger than many birds. The Salt Creek tiger beetle, the Pepilio, now this is species especially which is known as the shallow-tailed butterfly, the American burying beetle, the Kana blue butterfly, this is a North American species. All these are endangered right now. This bee is again in the endangered category. We have been using non-nicotinoids, and this is the main culprit, this pesticide, which is causing harm to the bees. See, Dave Golson of Sussex University, based on his, I would call it recent because it is not very old, it's of 2017, he states, insects make up about 2/3 of all life on Earth, but there has been some kind of horrific decline, and we appear to be making vast tracts of land inhospitable to most forms of life and are currently on course of ecological Armageddon. What he says further, if we lose the insects, then everything is going to collapse. What are we talking about? Little creatures. Sorry, what are these little creatures meant to us? We giant people. No. If we lose insects, then everything is going to collapse. This is what these researchers are saying. So it's high time we become alert. Are these the only little creatures, or they are much more than what we think about them? There is utmost need to take measures to conserve insect diversity, as is being done for other wildlife we think about. Now, investigating pesticide effects on wildlife. How can we do that? What should we question ourselves? So according to Fred Whiteford, the following questions help to summarize the complexity that biologists and toxicologists face when attempting to evaluate the pesticidal effects on wildlife. What level of a pesticide residue or its breakdown product, which we call it as a metabolite, is introduced into a wildlife habitat through direct application or via the transportation of residues in air, water, food, or soil. So this is first thing we should check. How long does the pesticide remain in the environment? We should try to get an answer to this question. Is the animal or plant exposed to the pesticide by mechanisms including dermal contact, inhalation, or consumption of contaminated food or water? Is the pesticide capable of producing biochemical effects, illness, or death through either single or multiple exposure? So what is required? Regulating the use of pesticides. So the three major concerns in the use of pesticides are direct poisoning of humans and wildlife through accidents or exposure during manufacture, transport, storage, or use, toxic residues that may pose a hazard to the consumer, and environmental pollution arising from introduction of pesticides in the ecosystem. So these need to be regulated. The question is, how can we turn the tide against pesticides? When we talk about we are using such an enormous amount indiscriminately, how do we turn the tide? We've been using it. So if you speak to the farmers, if you speak to anyone, oh, we've been using pesticides since long. Now, how our produce will be reduced if we stop using the pesticides? But we need to do something. We need to show our concern. So how can we turn the tide against these pesticides? My suggestions would be reduce pesticide use, more research into sustainable methods, a robust testing and monitoring regime of the pesticides, and of course, advise and educate the farmers. This is very, very important. And if we talk about what sustainable insect pest management strategies, when can we opt? There are a few strategies which we can opt, and these would be: number one, integrated pest management. I won't be talking in details about these methods. Use of resistant varieties, use of biological control agents, that is the natural enemies of insects, which are in the form of predators, parasites, and other pathogens, using of sterilization technique, using of sex attractants and pheromones, and of course, the highlighted one is the biopesticides or the botanicals, which I'm going to talk about. Because when I'm talking about the pesticides, I'm talking about that what we, it's a matter of great concern. You would question me, what are you doing? You are just talking, or you've done anything in action? So I would be talking about the botanicals, what work we have undertaken and what we have done. Plants possess secondary metabolites, which can be an effective source of insecticides. Botanicals are important because these can be considered as safe to non-target populations. They can be biodegradable and eco-friendly. They are safe in handling, cost-effective, and of course, easily available, because if we choose these plants from the local area, we can say they are easily available. They possess secondary metabolites, so which can be effective, and these can be about 350 compounds. This list is very short. There are more than these compounds, but some of them include the pyrethrum, the nicotine, the rotenone, the sabidilla, the rhinogene, the quassia, unsaturated isobutylamides, acetogenines, citrus, liponoids, essential oils, naphthoquinones, and so on and so forth, a long list. Now, with this concept that because the chemical pesticides, they pose a various health and environmental hazards, our laboratory of entomology, where I was working earlier, a government junior college, Bikaner, we undertook a work on screening of certain plants for the insecticidal efficacy against a specific insect pest, which was Callicebrucus chinensis. This is a stored grain pest, and it damages pulses, especially in storage. The life cycle is short. This is a male and a female Callicebrucus slide showing this insect, and the adult, it lays eggs on the pulses. Now, this is the healthy grain on which it was cultured in our laboratory. This was Vigna radiata. These are the healthy grains. In this slide, you can see the small white dots on the healthy grain. So now this is no more healthy. These are now stuck with the egg, which has been laid over this. So now they stick their eggs onto the grains of this healthy Vigna radiata and now go on unhealthy. And when the adult emerges out, this is how the damaged grains are left behind. We tried to screen various plants belonging to Zygophyllaceae, Amaranthacea, Leguminosae, Solanaceae, Lamiaceae, Euphorbiaceae, and Rutaceae. But I would be talking about, I think, only about 4 families. Plants belonging to Peganum, Harmella, Fegonia, Critica, Tribulus. These were belonging to Zygophyllaceae. Erva belonging to Amaranthacea. Tephrosia, Trigonella, Phenum, Geecum, Crotalaria, Prosopis, Cineraria, and Prosopis juliflora belonging to Leguminosae, or now the family is also known as Fabaceae. The solanaceous plants included Solanum surutens, Solanum nigrum, Vidania somnifera. The plants belonging to Lamiaceae included Mentha spicata, Ocimum sanctum, Ocimum basilicum. Of course, belonging to Euphorbiaceae included Euphorbia hirta, Jatropha curcas, and Phyllanthus amyrus. And Rutaceae, now we're still working on this plant, Aegil marmellus, Limonia acidissima, and Murraya conejai. What we did was that the field grower plants were picked up, they were washed with distilled water, different parts of the plant, that is root, stem, bark, leaves, fruits, depending upon whether it was a herb, it was a shrub, it was a tree. If we could uproot the plant, of course we could take the root, but it was a tree, we couldn't uproot, then we could only take their bark and leaves and fruits. So depending upon the plant type, we took their different parts. These were employed in the form of crude extract, aqueous suspension, aqueous extract, ether extract, methanol extract, ethanol extract. These were all Soxhlet extracted. Different dose concentration, it ranged from 0.25 to 50%, and along with normal, that is, there was no treatment giving in the normal sets. Control sets, that is treated with solvent for comparisons, were also kept, and analysis of variance with the help SPS analysis for the analysis of variance was done for comparing the results of various parts. We also did for smoke treatment. The different plant parts were incinerated to produce smoke using an indigenously designed equipment. The powder plant material was weighed, kept in and incinerated in a flask. Then it was connected to a fumigating chamber, and adults were kept in that. I'll show you. This is a schematic diagram. You can see this is how the dry plant part was kept. It was incinerated. The smoke was generated. The insects were kept in a chamber. The temperatures were regulated, and we tried to see the mortality of the insect. How the traditional method, smoke treatment, we've been using it traditionally. So once again, following that old tradition, we tried to do this. Here, the aspect studied was mortality, and statistical analysis were done employing SPSS for analysis of variance. Now, the salient and significant findings. I'm not showing the details of all the plant parts which were used, but just in short, that the adult mortality of the bruchid in some treatments was documented to be 100%. It was between 80 to 95 in certain. In most of the experimental sets, mortality was above 50%, significantly higher as compared to normal and control sets. So all the plants they showed more than 50%. Many showed between 80 to 95% of mortality, and in some cases it was even up to 100%. Further, many of the formulations prepared in water as a solvent were found to be very effective. So this is of great significance. See, one may say you're using ethanol, you're using methanol, you're using ether. These solvents are themselves harmful. But water also used when was used as a solvent, they were effective. So these formulations can be a very good alternative. Also, in many experimental sets, treatments of lower dose concentration were noted to result in higher mortality of the pest insect, and the smoke treatment of many of the plant parts also resulted in 70% mortality of the insect after 48 hours. So this again is very significant. We don't need to, employ the treatments, but even the smoke treatment, if they are kept in closed storehouses where we are keeping the crop, if they are used in the smoke form, they can be effective. So of the various plants we talk about, Paganum harmola, Tephrosia purpurea, Trigonella prosopis, Cineraria, Solanum surutens, and Orsibum basilicum were superior over others. And it could be concluded that certain plants, because of their biological activity, have a potential and can be used for pest management, and they can prove to be an alternative, cheap, eco-friendly, and non-hazardous substitute as against chemical insecticide, and especially because we have used this insect and we have employed it against this pest insect, which is Calosobruchus sinensis. Of course, against this insect, this can be very effective. Definitely, a lot of work needs to be done before the large-scale utilization of these botanicals. How can we protect wildlife when using pesticides? Now, this again is a major question. So, if we choose to use a pesticide, always read the label carefully before each use and pay special attention to the environmental hazard section. Just don't you start using it blindly. We need to be very careful when we are employing or applying a pesticide. Try to adopt, as suggested, an IPM approach, the integrated pest management strategy, which may include tolerating harmless pests or using physical control methods. In this method, we use various things, including the use of resistant varieties, physical control methods, and so on. Choose the least toxic products that are available and effective. Give due consideration to what will happen to the pesticide after each use. How much is it going to be how long will it last as in the form of a residual effect? Will it move from treated areas? Would there be a drift? Try not to apply pesticide when it is raining or about to rain. This would at least reduce the leaching. Be very careful while disposing of any pesticide containers. So at least these things must be kept in mind. You may not much, but you may contribute a little to save the environment and protect the wildlife. Now, coming to the end, just glimpse of the beautiful world of insects, that is the non-target insects. See, such beautiful insects, such beautiful insects, so colorful the nature has given us. These are the butterflies. Even the moths. When we say talk about butterflies and moths, we always think moths are not beautiful. You see the beautiful moths. Such a beautiful world of insects. After all the total deliberation I have given, do you still think that we must use insecticides to kill the insects? Because we are not only targeting the insects, we are targeting this beautiful world of insects. These are the bees, the hymenopterans. So if a choice between chemical and botanicals, choose the latter, of course, which I've been talking about, the botanicals, a few examples which we have used. If no choice, of course, use the former more judiciously, not only to safeguard the insects, but also our present and future generations. I would say go natural, go pesticide free, and use green. The botanicals I have been talking about, eat green because we've been using it in the stored grain pulses, make a safer environment to live in. So use green, eat green, make a safer environment to live in. With these words, I would say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Srivastava. That was an amazing and the most beautiful lecture I've heard on pesticides. Me, myself, being the pesticide toxicologist, I appreciate it a lot. You spoke about pesticide pollution and data on the consumption of pesticides in India is horrifying. Use of cosmetic pesticides in making fruits and vegetables more beautiful but making them toxic to be ingested has shaken everyone here. The topic you've chosen is so much appropriate in the present time, as pesticides are known to be potent carcinogens, mutagens, and teratogens, and their use is the answer to many diseases which are prevailing in our society. And we are so much wretched to see those beautiful insects that have gone extinct. Dr. Srivastava, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking out time to be with here and speak on such a wonderful topic. Your presence and wise words help to magnify our cause in the best possible way. All thanks to you for enlightening the words that inspired so many people out there, including me. Thank you so much, ma'am, and we look forward to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mamta, and I'm sorry because due to technical problem,
No,
there was a little delay in that. So sorry for that.
no,
And
ma'am, it happens. It's fine. It's
thank
just
you,
fine.
thank you, dear. Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye, ma'am. Now it's time for our 16th keynote address to be delivered by Dr. Jaswinder S. Sandhu, an environmentalist and wildlife conservationist from Brampton, Canada. Dr. Sandhu did his PhD in zoology in the year 1983 from Punjab Agriculture University, Ludhiana, on use of organic waste in composite fish culture, and MSc in zoology in 1977 with entomology as his specialization. He has worked as assistant professor forestry wildlife from 1987 to 1966 in Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana, and was involved in full-time teaching wildlife and basic forestry courses to the undergraduate and postgraduate students, along with the research on wildlife of Punjab. What is the main highlight of his profile in his own words is that I taught wildlife courses in forestry and natural resources in the Department of Punjab Agriculture University and worked on research projects related to forestry, wildlife, and nature. White tiger is still alive in zoos because of me and Dr. Manjeet S. Dhinsa. Dissemination of scientific information to common people has been and is on my agenda ever since I came to know the importance of scientific information. We are so happy to have you with us, Dr. Sandhu. I would request you to start with your keynote address. Sir, आपका बहुत-बहुत स्वागत, अभिनंदन. आवाज नहीं आ रही. Sir, we can't hear you. Sir, we can't hear you. Unmute him. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, give me a few seconds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me properly now?
Yes, sir, we can.
Dr. Mamta Sharma, please,
Yes,
can you
sir.
hear me?
Yes,
Can
sir,
you
very
hear
well.
me
We
now
can.
or not?
Yes, yes, we can. उनको हमारी आवाज नहीं जा रही.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. First of all, let me thank Dr. Meera Srivastava. She was very, what should I say, inclusive of so many things. And I enjoyed her lecture. Though it was a little long because she took my time also to some extent. But
Sir, you have all the time. You please take your time. We have no time constraint for you.
Oh, I was just joking. It was
Yes.
really interesting. And
Yeah, it was very interesting.
she has also introduced a part of my subject also. So, hello, all the wild lovers. I mean, wildlife lovers. My name, as you know, Jaswinder Sandhu. Right now, I live in Canada, near Toronto. Near Toronto, and there is a small city known as Brampton. We are just joining Toronto. And here it is 2:48 a.m. in the morning. And good afternoon to all of you. And I know you are enjoying the earlier beautiful presentation by Dr. Meera Srivastava. And I have also enjoyed that. Thank you very much to be ready to listen to me. We will be talking about wildlife and why should we conserve it? Because people, we hear a lot of people talking about wildlife conservation. And now it's high priority sort of thing, at least in the scientific area. Still, political biosphere is not very concerned, though they also make noise like us. But at least in educational circles and scientific circles, wildlife conservation is a big issue. And we people are, including all of you, we are concerned about it and we want to know more and more about it. Let's go ahead with the wildlife thing. Wildlife, how can we define wildlife? I'm sorry, my slide is out of sequence here. Let me fix. Now, what is wildlife? Normally, native flora and fauna of a region is known as its biodiversity, all of it, including animals, plants, bacteria, or whatever is living. Everything is from area is included in its biodiversity, living, diverse things. Now, all free living organisms which are or can be regarded as resources, they are included in wildlife. Oh, this actually, as far as I see the things, you also had some examples given by Dr. Meera Srivastava that lot of things are being used. As she was talking about biomimicry, we are copying the natural living organisms, systems to improve our own life. So they are our resources for new designs, etc. So whatever is being regarded as resources or can be regarded as resources, that is included in wildlife. So as far as I understand, wildlife, everything living is our resource today or tomorrow, or maybe day after tomorrow. So we must be concerned about conserving every living thing around us because we cannot produce it. It is there with us with millions of billions of years of evolution that we have them. So if we lose them, then we have lost our historical resource from the surface of the earth. Whatever is going extinct, it's not going to come back, at least for now. Like Indian cheetah, we have lost it earlier, and we have lost white tiger from the wild, though it's still living in the zoos. So anything lost is very difficult, at least extremely difficult, at least at this time, to bring it back. So traditionally, though, wildlife meant only big game animals because people were hunting or fishing, or they were going fishing and hunting in seas, oceans, like whale hunting and stuff, or big fish hunting. So it was traditionally wildlife meant for the people only big animals, or which they were going after them for trophies and to hang on the walls or something like that. But now we are treating it as something nature has given to us, and we are part of the nature. That's why we treat it differently now. Next, why should we conserve wildlife? Why it is so important? You have seen biomimicry and other things. We will talk about that also. Wildlife, first and foremost thing is for everybody, wildlife is beautiful, entertaining, and part of our nature. It provides humans food, part of humans are still having their food from the nature. So it is providing humans food and other products. Like we collect in India peacock feathers for different purposes. And there are lots of things. Well, if we start counting, you can't even finish in 1 hour. So it also provides hunting sports for people who like to hunt. Though hunting is banned in India now, wildlife hunting is totally banned in India, according to Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Wildlife in zoos is used for educational, conservational, and aesthetic purposes. Aesthetic means entertaining purposes. Some people keep wild pets also. Here, especially in America and Canada, people are going crazy after animals. They have pets as dogs, everybody has, cats they have snakes, they have dangerous snakes also, they have even pythons, they have. A few years ago, a girl had kept python, and she used to sleep with it, python, because it was a little small python, and then it started growing. And after some time, I'm not sure how long actually, it stopped eating. The pythons eat not every day. They eat something, and then until they finish it, they just keep sluggish. They don't eat anything. Big python, if it eats a big animal, then it can be without, it can be there in the wild without eating even for 2-3 months. So this python stopped eating and she was concerned. She took it to veterinary doctor to ask why my python is not eating. It's still sleeping like earlier with me in the bed, and it goes around me, it loves me so much, but it doesn't eat anything. The doctor told her, it is just trying to size you if you are fit for her to eat or not. She was scared then. Then she gave it to some soup. So people are so crazy after keeping wild pets. But that's also one of the reasons why people like to conserve wildlife. So there are so many medicinal values of wildlife. We just had those things in details by Dr. Meera Srivastava. I don't want to go into details again. Every organism, plant or animal, or even a bacteria, has a unique genome. And this uniqueness of the animals, plants, bacteria, or anything, even viruses, which are not considered even living while they're outside, because when they enter a living thing, then they start producing. So they are in between living and non-living, but they are also unique in their genomes. It's up to us how to make use of them. So that's one big reason why we should be conserving wildlife or any living material. It provides us jobs, careers. I am talking because I'm talking to you because it was my profession. It gave me a job. My whole career is based on it, though for some time I was off from this thing. I'm back at it again, though it is just for not for making money anymore. It is just my passion now. And it's unfathomable, very, very high value for scientific development, as you have already seen, and we will see in few examples I'll give you shortly after this. Examples of some use, like about half of the 160 million metric tons of fish still comes from wild, though other half is being cultured by us. A big fishing industry dependent industry while thrives on wildlife fisheries alone. Because when we catch fish, then we process it, we send it to people, and all those chains up to grocery table in our homes, they are being supported by this thing, and wildlife is surely sustaining some of our food chains and economy. So it's important from that angle. Now, as Dr. Meera Srivastava was also talking about development based on, she used the term biomimicry. Sonar and radar development is being based on organs of dolphins, whales, and bats. Now, how good our sonars or radars are? Indian or US or NATO's? Yes, they can identify their ship, others' ships, or ship going around, or submarine going around in their sea, or an aeroplane in their area air. But are they as good as dolphins, whales, and bats? No, they are not even close to it. A bat can identify its food species and size from with its sonar system or radar system. But our radars or sonars cannot even recognize if it is our own ship or plane. So